So the next part, this is something that came to me 2 days before the event. I just was hit with a wave of inspiration, and I was like, I think I should get people to just flail their arms and like make like gobbling noises like a turkey and like roll their eyes back in their head and just go like blah, 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 blah. And it was like, what is the value of that? Like what could possibly be the value of that? Well, I'll tell you, it's the same sort of thing as the dance piece that I was just talking about. It's about pushing the boundary of being seen by other people, so that you don't take yourself so seriously anymore. And then eventually they acquiesced and they did it. And the most wonderful thing was, as soon as they started doing it, you could tell they were having fun. Like the instant they started doing it, they're just like, there was a joy that exuded from them.
Are you laughing about the rabbits running around?
Did you see them?
Literally rabbits hopping behind you. You're not going to see anything back here.
All right, Luke. You want to explain the rabbits?
I do. Oh, I have a great rabbit story. Actually, yeah. There's one.
Is that why you turned your computer earlier? I didn't know if that was a mistake.
That's why I turned it earlier. I was trying to find it. There's one under that table. You can kind of.
Oh yeah.
So anyway,
They're so cute.
They're so good. Yeah. So here is the rabbit story.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Chris James podcast, where I talk with entrepreneurs, creators, and health experts. This conversation with Melanie Jane and Luke McKim is one of the most fun podcast episodes I've ever been a part of. Melanie is a writer, a world traveler, and she worked in the fashion industry for 10 years. Luke McKim is a kundalini yoga master, an event organizer, and a good friend of mine. He hosts live events in Canada, and they're all about, connection and having fun. And toward the end of this podcast, he tells a hilarious story about one of the events that he held. So without further ado, let's get into it. And if you enjoy this podcast, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I have a lot of amazing podcasts to release in the coming weeks. So here we go.
So I was saying, when I was younger, we were just talking about the lack of knowledge of Canadian geography of most Americans, even if they're located super close to Canada. Like we went on this shopping trip with my sisters and some of my friends down to Freeport, Maine, which is maybe about an hour or an hour and a half from the border to Canada.
No.
3 hours. 3 hours.
3 hours.
Okay, 3 hours. Anyway, it's 3 hours.
I believed you.
Okay. It's not that far. But we were there, and we just for fun, we decided to ask people questions about Canada. We were like, we're planning a trip to Canada. Like, do you think we can get a snowmobile to meet us at the border? And this was like the middle of the summer. And they're like, yeah, I think you can do that. And like, people were like very amenable to that response. We were leading the question, but they were like very much thought that was a possibility. And we're like, well, how do we get to Canada from here? And they're like, I don't know. No idea. But anyway, that was our bit of fun. It was just... Yeah, I mean, people, in a way, it's a good thing that you don't fill your head with more information, like with useless information that you don't need.
Is that how you spend that's how you spend your discretionary time, Luke? You come to America and you troll Americans?
Yes, it is. Yeah, this was an inquiry before the call began. It's like, how do you spend your free time? It's like, well, I have strange conversations with people I never met. Like this one.
I love
Here we are.
And Luke is like a kundalini yoga master, and he leads very interesting meditations. So Luke, you want to explain more?
I'll start us off.
I love that.
Yeah, so we typically start off with just a short little meditation, like 3 to 5 minutes, and it's a great way to clear out what it is we've arrived with, like whatever, like anxiety or feel like we need to present or perform or something like that. It's a good way of getting out of that space and just accessing our own realness, so we can just have a conversation and just be ourselves with greater ease. So the practice that I like to bring to people is the one that I feel is the most effective at doing that in just 3 minutes. And it's a breath of fire practice. Let's begin. Doing great. Stay steady. Stay with the breath, keeping the breath strong. Keeping the shoulders relaxed, the elbows straight. continuing to invite the attention back between the eyebrows?
I feel good. I was a little anxious, I'm not gonna lie. So
Yeah,
that was very
that's a natural
helpful.
thing.
Like I was asking Luke, like if he feels like he lives on the other side of fear, or if fear is like still a puppet master a little bit in his life, and he said like in some areas yes, but he's made a lot of progress, which is cool to even have that awareness.
Yeah, well, it's just so obvious around certain things. Like I care a lot less about the perceptions of others in my regular life, and more so, and beginning to happen online. I care a lot less about what people think of me online. That was initially a hurdle I had to get over when I started my YouTube channel and this podcast and a bunch of other things. Like now I'm broadcasting myself out there, and yeah, I feel like I'm mostly over that one too. But all the way back in high school, I was very concerned with the perceptions of other people on me, and it was kind of an anxiety related thing.
Oh yeah.
And now I really don't care. And now I've come to the point of being kind of absurd in public, just for my own amusement. And I'm lucky enough to have a partner who is willing to go there with me and just kind of be like silly and engage people and, just achieve the maximum enjoyment that we can in a situation, regardless of what other people onlooking might think. Like we were at the beach earlier this week and it started to rain, and I actually used to work at that beach as a lifeguard when I was younger. And I remember observing if even the slightest drop of rain hit that beach, people were going to pack up and leave. Like 60% of the people on the beach were going to be out of there. But you could see in the sky that this was a small cloud. It was going to pass. We were in for maybe 5 minutes of rain maximum. And yet everyone left the beach and they all sheltered under like the awnings and whatever. And most of them went to their cars and just left. But we didn't. We were like, it's going to pass. It's going to be like, but how can we not be so cold as we're doing this? They're like, well, we probably need to dance. And so we just burst into dance, and we just like put on some Caribbean steel drum music and had a waterproof speaker. And we just like danced it out for like
that's lovely
8 consecutive minutes while the entirety of the rest of the beach was just sitting under the trees, just like watching us do it. And like, like they were welcome to join, but and it was great. And then the rain clouds passed and the sun came back out, and that was that. But it feels good to give myself the freedom to really
amazing.
Like, enjoy life and have fun and not be so concerned about what other people are observing in me.
For my whole life, really was like so interested in fashion. And I think when I was younger, it was kind of this just like shiny thing that was in, like it seemed like such an exciting, like work in that field kind of seemed amazing, and textiles and color and dress and everything. But really what made me go into the textile industry, apparel and textile industry, was my fascination with how dress and textiles and choosing what you wear can really make you feel more yourself or discover more about yourself. I think I like that piece. It's a beautiful story, right? Like I don't think it always has to be dress. I think it can be different types of self-care or whatever it may be. But I do think that what we give to ourselves, how we take care of ourselves, can propel us to be the person we want to be, the best version of who we are. And so that is what I love about textiles and apparel. It's the ability to allow people to express themselves in a way that if, we all wore the same thing or were put into the same box of needing to look the same way, you maybe wouldn't get that piece. So yeah, I love that story. And it's kind of very connected to why I have such an interest in the space initially, and it's only grown since then of reasons why I am fascinated with the space and love the work that I've been able to do. But I do think it's such a big propeller of, being able to showcase a piece of ourselves or make ourselves feel better.
Yeah, it is cool to think about
I
fashion.
like that.
Like I've never been like big on dress codes, but there is like when I coach mountain biking lessons, and I have to like wear we're like sponsored by Fox, and we have to wear like all Fox attire, and they give us like cool shirts and shorts and everything. And and gloves. And so I wear like all Fox stuff, and it was just given to me for free. And it feels good to be like in like a uniform and everyone else is wearing it. And there's definitely some power in like wearing the same thing as other people. You feel part of something. But I also like creating my own attire and like finding my own style. And like there's definitely a lot of agency in fashion where it's like something you're gonna have to do. Like all the humans, we have to choose our clothing, and it's fun to engage in that creatively. And so for me, one thing I've shied away from is like text on my clothes. I almost never opt for that. I like almost like all three of us, we have clothes. Like we don't have like, it doesn't say Nike on our chests or something like that. And Melanie, I will say, I really love your shirt. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a dress, actually.
Oh, cool. Even better.
Yeah. Stuff. And I think that there's two sides of the coin to the story of like, maybe sometimes the ability to choose what we wear is this thing that is privileged and can be seen from people in different spectrums of whatever their reality is. That can be seen as something that's good or bad or hard or easy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Like it could be seen either way. Like you could see it as like oppression if you have to like wear a certain uniform or like you're required to or something, or you could see it as just a simplification of your life.
Yeah.
And an inclusion in a group, kind of like what you said. You're like, I feel more like a team because we're all kind of in this together.
Exactly.
And so that it can be an empowering notion. It's probably just the way you're thinking about it. And I think that fashion sense was born out of contrarianism, where it's like, initially people were like, I don't want to look like everyone else. So now I'm going to dress in this kind of very different way, where it's a lot of like big glasses and tight corduroy pants and plaid shirts. And
they intentionally look like ugly and weird because they just want to be different and they want to stand out and make a statement that I'm not in the mainstream.
It's right. But in so doing, when enough of them start doing it, which they have here, it's it's almost the mainstream now. And so
and then they have to pivot to something even weirder.
I guess so. I haven't seen that pivot happen. I think they're quite happy that it just kind of is the mainstream.
Well, it's a cycle.
I just think it's funny that intention to be different.
Constant evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bit of that. Like there's a bit of like people try something different and then they stand out and then people kind of copycat that, but then that doesn't help people stand out anymore. So then it's something new. So there's all these kind of cycles and waves in fashion and fads but there's also on the flip side of that, there's timeless beauty, I think, that persists through the decades, and Hawaiian shirt's definitely one of them.
No, I agree. Like it's a constant evolution, but then you get to see the things that stick with time, which I think is fun too.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting back on, I was at a concert in Portland, Maine, and it was in the winter. It was like February, and I remember kind of observing like the hipster fashion, and I'm very out of touch with hipster fashion, so this is like a new thing for me. And I was looking at, it was like a few things I noticed were high-waisted pants and like kind of baggy pants were also a thing, like, which I thought was funny, like, because for many years it was skinny jeans when I was coming up, but now it's the complete opposite. It's kind of like pants that don't really fit. And it seems like even some people are like leaning so hard into it that to my eyes, it looks like they're dressing like homeless people, which is kind of funny. I was like, And then the other thing I noticed was some kind of people inappropriately dressed for the weather. Like 10 p.m. in February is definitely a time you'd want to have a coat, especially in Maine. And there's people who are sacrificing the coat for, I guess, their perception of other people's perception.
Yep. Isn't that right though? Don't we? In life, I mean, you want to look a certain way maybe. So you just ditch the coat, just accept being freezing.
Yeah. And then it reminds me of the funny trend when I was growing up. It was like for guys, it was exposed boxers, like exposed underwear. You just pull your underwear up above your pants. Wasn't
Why
that
was that a
something?
thing?
I don't know. It was like a big thing
I
for
don't
like a
understand.
solid 5 years.
I remember that thing. Yeah.
Like your jeans fall so far below your boxers that it's
Right.
like, you might as well not have the jeans.
Yeah, so I'm struck by this explanation I heard of that, which was that trend actually started in a prison system where people needed to signal to each other that they were homosexual, and that's what they would do. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true.
I can't say I've ever heard that.
I haven't heard that, but it is funny. Like, it's kind of the telephone game of fashion. A lot of people might not know the wink, wink. It's like what they're actually communicating to people through their choice.
That was wasn't that the ear piercing thing, or is that also a bullshit explanation?
I heard that growing up. It's like, what was it? Like right ear is the secret sign that you're gay, and then left ear, like you're not gay. It's like, I don't know if that was made
that
up
was definitely a thing that clearly transcends borders.
Yeah. I think it was something that heterosexual males had to pay attention to, because they were just like, wait, what do I not do here? Like, really? Or the gay people were just like, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to pierce both ears. Like, I'm not worried about it. The best app.
Melanie, are you laughing about the rabbits running around?
Did you see them?
Literally rabbits hopping behind you. You're not going to see anything back here.
All right, Luke. You want to explain the rabbits?
I do. Oh, I have a great rabbit story. Actually, look, there's one.
Is that why you turned your computer earlier? I didn't know if that was a mistake.
That's why I turned it earlier. I was trying to find it. There's one under that table. You can kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
They're so cute.
They're so good. Yeah. So here is the rabbit story. There is a petting zoo and an ice cream place just down the road from where I am. And my girlfriend was staying here last week. And we decided to just bike over to the ice cream place and see the petting zoo. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to release some of those rabbits, to like purchase the rabbits, because they were for sale. They were like $20 for the life of a rabbit. Like, that is underpriced. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun to like buy the rabbits, spend an evening with them, maybe spend a day with them, and then release them into the wild, because I live out in the country and like
wine and dine them.
and like, wouldn't it be nice to just like give them their freedom, because they've been living in a cage, and like 2 of them were born there. They were 3 months old. They were born in that cage pretty much. And then the mother had been living in captivity her whole life. So we wanted to buy them all as a family, the mother and her daughter and son, and just hang out with them. And so we did. And 2 of them were very trepidatious initially getting out of their cage. Like, their legs were so stiff they could barely even walk, and they were like scared and all these things. So we let them spend the first night inside, and then the next day we put them in a little outdoor pen, and they were very anxious to get out of the pen, and they like wanted to like explore. And we're like, okay, there you go. Like, and there they go. Goodbye, rabbits. Like, never to be seen again. Like, what a great experience. And so they hopped off into the bushes, and then we stayed outside. And about half an hour later,
leave. Oh no!
Sorry, is something happening here?
They're still no. We were just laughing. Like, you said about a half an hour later, they came back.
Yeah. Half an hour later, they came. They came out of the bushes, and one of them started to like even prance around for us. And she like did little like runs, and this was the rabbit who could like barely walk 24 hours ago. And she was just sprinting around, and she did what's called a bun blinky, which is an expression of bunny joy, which is where they jump and then change direction in midair. So she was really like just showing. And the interesting thing is, these buns understand human speech because they were raised in captivity, and like they're very responsive to us, like talking to them. It's kind of miraculous. But anyway, it's been a week now. They did not leave. They live here now. And here they are
So you
on the
have
patio.
pets.
Like, yeah, they live outside. I don't know where they sleep.
Do they
Somewhere in
like?
the woods.
Can they snuggle with you? Is that an option?
That is not quite an option. No. One of them is a bit more amenable to being petted than the others, and even then, not that much. Like, but they love being around. Like, they will come right up to me, like a foot away from me. But if I actually try to pat them, they're still not quite sure if I'm gonna like put them somewhere other than here. So they're just like, no, I'm not going back to that cage. So no petting. No, thank you. But it's
I
a good
love that
relationship.
you did that. Give them their freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And they chose you, really.
They did. They
At
chose
this
to
point.
say.
Yeah, they looked up in the sky and saw one hawk and said, "I'm coming back to Luke."
Oh.
They are here.
Oh my goodness. Do you feed them? Or
No,
do they just
they just eat the
eat
grass.
the grass?
They just eat a lot of grass and plants
other
and
things.
leaves. And there are two, there's a stream that runs on each side of the house. So I hope they have found that and get water. There's dew in the morning. So they're at least getting some water from eating the grass in the morning. But I have not fed them in a week, and they are.
Do they pay rent?
Wow.
They mow the lawn. So.
They mow the lawn. That's a fair trade.
Yeah, true.
One of them was actually weeding like the walkway. Like, there's little like bits of grass that stick up between the stones on like the entry walkway, and he's just like eating all the weeds. And I'm like, that's actually very useful eating what you're doing right now. That would be picked by hand.
You're like, keep going.
Yes.
I'm sure you told him
That's
that.
great.
And like you
I
said,
did.
he speaks English.
Yeah, he 100% did. I said, you're earning your keep at this moment, and I want to see more of that. Thank you.
3 hours a day.
You're on the clock.
Yeah.
For this conversation, what is sustainable?
Oh, well, these days I feel like I veer from the word.
Oh, gotcha.
But I think it makes sense that everyone would have their own definition, because really being sustainable, it's like, okay, what are you doing in your everyday practice? And, maybe it's your house, the products that you use, anything that you engage with in life. How are you choosing to do it in a sustainable way, in a way that maybe that you think is good, or that's propelling something good,
right?
From your use of it, or your choice, your purchase.
Yeah, I think the word sustainable has kind of trended towards just meaning good. But when I think about the word sustainable, I think about like, is there in economics what's called an unpriced externality, which means that there's some consequence that's not being accounted for, and it's kind of just kicking the can down the road. Like burning oil is like the best example. Like, we don't price that in the costs of putting that into the atmosphere. That's not priced into the price of producing the oil. So in theory, it would be a better situation. It would be more sustainable if we priced in the cost of pulling the carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it back in the ground. And that would be like the true cost, or like a better price to price the oil. So it's considered unsustainable in my eyes, because we're not pricing in the externality of downstream consequences. So
yeah, the impact.
Right. The long-term impact is what I think about sustainability.
Maybe I should say, as like human rights, like not employing children really young age, not having mandatory, long shifts, or unhealthy work environments where it's, you're sitting next to toxins.
Luke, what just happened, buddy?
Sideways.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt, but I do have something to say. So there's kind of been some talk recently about employing children And there's, in our culture in America, it's bad. It's like people think bad with child labor. Why is child labor bad? Like, the kids should have the right to work too if they want to make money, so long as, you know, they're getting paid appropriately. Like, they can't get paid 10 cents. That would be inappropriate. But if they want a job and they get paid and the conditions are, you know, within the boundaries of the law, then why not have? And so when COVID happened and there's less workers now, a lot of states lowered the age that kids can work. So even today in New Hampshire, like, I see a lot of kids working at cash registers. I'm like, you're 12 years old. But I'm okay with that. I don't take an issue with a 12-year-old working. Like, that's fine. I mean, what, like, as opposed to doing what? Going on TikTok? So what do you think about, like, child labor? It's still, like, even when I say child labor, it just has such a dirty vibe.
I think there's probably like a good work ethic related thing for a young person to have a part-time job. I think the more places that, you know, in a constructive way want to employ a 12-year-old person for a couple of hours a week. Again, not necessarily taking them on full-time, because I would encourage them to be derelict in some of their other academic duties or whatever else. But just to build in like a part-time job, I think that's awesome. And then people can start to have a relationship with money at an earlier age, so that it isn't just something that they get in an infinite supply from their parents or some limited supply or whatever it may be, but they're actually feeling that, you know, their own energy going into the process and then purchasing something that they want with it. And, you know, yeah, I think the earlier you can build that foundation, like I had one of my earlier girlfriends when I was 20, her parents made her start paying rent when she was like 10, I think. And it was only like a quarter or something, quarter a week or a quarter a month. But she had to pay rent to live there. And so they just, you know, and she had to find a way to earn the money to pay the rent. So it was just,
that's like, smart. I've never thought about that. Like, just make it a quarter, and that starts the thinking process of like, okay, this is how the world works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess it would be like, do your like help around and like do a chore or whatever it may be, right? To pay the quarter or whatever it may be, but you know, help out, take initiative to do things. I don't know, this conversation is interesting, and I think that for me, I lead with a lot of questions around the topic. Like, for one, what are the parameters? Like, what are the reasons for working? Is it like at the base of it, is it forced? I think that in a lot of situations, it could be if a family needs something, or in whatever situation, right? So is it forced? To like, what age are we talking? Because I think that it is unfortunate, the screen time that we have in the world today. It's a very big reality, obviously. You mentioned TikTok. There's, you know, a million other things that you can fill your time with just on a screen. But there's a, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, but there is a lot of being a child that needs to happen. Like, but needs to happen, really. I guess I will say that to develop. Right. And so I think that a question would be like, you know, what are the parameters around that? Because, you know, maybe if someone's just scrolling something and not having like experience outside of a screen, you know, maybe there is validity for work at a certain time or age. But yeah, to me, there's like many questions. And I think that in manufacturing, when I think about it, I think about the questions of what are the parameters, what are the situations. When we're talking about manufacturing, we're often talking about a lot of things that maybe are outside of the realm of certain ages of kids, but there is realities around the world of young kids working, like young, you know, maybe a baby is sitting next to someone on a sewing line, you know, or maybe there's dangerous machinery or chemicals that we can teach a child, but maybe a child doesn't have the
Right.
full understanding of what is good and bad for them. Right.
So I think,
for me in that space, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah. I think that's why I think that it is valid to ask.
Valid to ask these questions, or it's definitely valid to like have people inquiring and doing the hard thinking about, what should we do in particular situations. But yeah, in my head, I think under 10 years old is definitely like, there's a like, so I have kind of a radical perspective that under 11 years old, so 10 and under, you really shouldn't have to do much of anything. You should just be really focused on just playing outside with your friends and just letting yourself kind of grow into like a human. Like you shouldn't be required to like go to school and like learn all this regimented stuff. And like, I just don't see it as necessary. Like it doesn't take that long to like read and write and do math. And really, I think like the first 10 years should be like, you should be fully taken care of and just play outside with your friends. And then once you're like 10, 11 years old, you need to start learning that responsibility of like, and start doing things you don't necessarily want to do, and start learning how that works. And so I think 12 years old is perfectly acceptable age for starting like a wage labor job. And then, hopefully you can, by the time you're 22, you don't have to do wage labor anymore because you've created something or something like that. So you're kind of propelling yourself into adulthood a little bit earlier.
Well, it's probably worthwhile to have an experience like that at some point so that you recognize that without skills or without some sort of either your own enterprising ability through entrepreneurship or without some sort of accreditation or skills or advanced learning, you're probably going to have to do a job that isn't very satisfying. And so it's probably worthwhile to do a job that isn't that satisfying for a little while when you're young and be like, okay, I think I've had this experience now, and now I'm motivated to get what I need so I don't have to do this ad nauseum forever. Whereas if you don't know that that's what you're in for, you may just kind of stick around a bit more in your youth and not necessarily get what you need. And then you're just kind of stuck there and you don't have people supporting you and giving you the resources to become skilled. And yeah, I think Melanie phrased it really well, at least in this divide. It really can be boiled down to, is the labor exploitative or is it empowering? And it's like, if it's exploitative, no. If it's actually legitimately intended for the child's own betterment and learning and experience and to earn a bit of money, great.
Well, I was going to say, I'm from a place called Iowa nice or Midwest nice, is what they say. So I don't know, Chris, if you visited Iowa, or sometimes they say Nebraska nice or whatever. So I think maybe I have a different perspective, but maybe also, Luke, I'm a little similar to your girlfriend. I like to meet people and communicate with people and talk to people. Like I have often met people in supermarkets. And I like sparking communication with people because I don't know, I just love meeting new people. But so I don't know, maybe it's beyond borders. It's just that intrigue, I guess, behind it, or desire, maybe.
I think it's a perspective. I think it's just an acknowledgement that it's possible. Whereas a lot of people think like, oh, I'm only going to meet, relevant people within these certain windows that I'm allotting for myself. It's like, I'm only going to meet new friends out at the bar when I drink after 9 o'clock at night or something. Or it's like, I'm only going to meet, whatever, like, at some set up activity, like,
well, I think
like, no, it could happen anywhere. It's like any time of day, any walk of life, there are people.
I think what happens is people get like lulled into that mindset as they grow up in America, that you make friends at work and at school. Starts with that school. Like and they don't really learn how to make friends with strangers at the supermarket, but some people can figure it out naturally. But I think a lot of people are just kind of trained to be friends with the people that make friends in a school setting, which is kind of a contrived setting. And then they make friends at work, and that can be very limiting if that's the only way that you can make friends. But to Luke's point, like about is talk like uplifting people at the supermarket, it can be very uplifting. Even just a smile from a stranger in passing can be like, oh, okay, like the world is good or something like that. There's some energy transmission going on.
There's definitely an energy transmission. And I don't remember where I heard this, but this does seem very valid. I started doing this with like old high school acquaintances or people that I didn't really know very well. But apparently, the way that you meet someone will then be the way that they expect the interaction to go the next time. So if you're used to just seeing some casual acquaintance and you're just like, hey, and then you both go about your thing. If one of the times you see them, you're like, hello, then their response will probably be like, hey. But then the next time they see you, they'll be like, hello, Luke, my friend. And they'll be like, this is what I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm not used to it the first time, but then the next time it's like, yeah, like no real life event or significance has happened to change that dynamic. But that's just, they're like, I'm open to this new dynamic of it being this sort of way, or like, this is how I greet this human now. So we can change them. We can change our relationships, and it's easier than you think.
Yeah. Wear mics. Have you guys met each other in person much?
We have not yet met in person.
There was an attempt.
To
New Brunswick a couple weeks ago for an event that I hosted.
I'll tell the story. I'll tell. Okay. So I have some family and friends in Maine, and so I went out to Maine and did a bunch of fun adventures, and then the plan was to just pop up across the border into New Brunswick for this event. And then I was on a whitewater rafting trip, and it was like almost at the end of the trip. I was like thinking about what I'm gonna do next. I'm like, oh, I'll just drive across the border and show my passport that I don't have with me, so I'm not going to this event.
Oh no.
So, yeah. Anyways, yeah, Luke, do you want to talk about the event?
Sure. And to your credit, I think you did try to cross the border without the passport.
I gave him a call. I didn't drive all the way to the border, like the station, but I gave him a call and I said, hey, here's the situation. They said, no, birth certificate or passport. And I said, okay, have a nice day.
Yeah.
But yeah, the event was amazing. It was, we got about 20, I think there was like 22 people total. And we got together and we did some authentic relating games, which are just ways of beginning to communicate at at a deeper level than just the surface level conversations that most people have, where you're actually kind of getting to express yourself and be real and be seen by, like, ideally a total stranger so that you get more comfortable with those interactions. And then you can have supermarket moments all you want. So we did a bit of that. And then we did some kundalini yoga and some meditation. And we hung out and had a little beach party. And then we did ecstatic dance, which is something I love doing, which is kind of just a body inhabiting form of dance where you get to get over yourself and your fear of being seen in a certain way as you're dancing, and just enjoy the fluidity and the juiciness of getting into your body and moving around. And we did a bunch of like exercises, or guided people through like some exercises to get people playing with each other and like pretending they were animals and all these other fun things.
I'm glad I didn't go.
Well, you're going to be real glad you didn't go when you hear the next part. So the next part, this is something that came to 2 days before the event. I just was hit with a wave of inspiration, and I was like, I think I should get people to just flail their arms and like make like gobbling noises like a turkey, and like roll their eyes back in their head and just go like and I was like, what is the value of that? Like, what could possibly be the value of that? Well, I'll tell you, it's the same sort of thing as the dance piece that I was just talking about. It's about pushing the boundary of being seen by other people. so that you don't take yourself so seriously anymore. And imagine if you could just get that part over with at the start of a social interaction that's going to go on for several hours. And it's like, well, we got that out of the way. Now let's not worry about it so much. And like, we have a blank canvas now for this situation. So I was doing that exercise with people, and we were doing it in pairs. So 2 people had to get up and do that for 30 seconds on the clock.
Holy
with
shit.
everyone else watching you in a circle.
In front of everyone.
Sitting in a circle, you had to get up and pretend you were a turkey and make gobbling noises and be like, just like absolutely going nuts. And you had to do it. And there were 2 guys, the 2 Indian guys who had they've been living in Canada for a few years. They spoke really good English. But they came, they didn't know anyone. We met one of them the night before. The other one, we hadn't even met anybody. They drove down the driveway as we were doing that event. And then I think they got back in their cars and they were like, are we really going in there? It's like, I don't know about this. And then they were like, okay, I guess we're doing it. And then they got out of their cars, they walked in, and they were just like, they had pressed iron, like dress shirts, thick cologne, tight jeans. They were not there to do yoga. They were there for like something else. Like, but we got them into it right away. Anyway, like we did a quick little catch up of, the authentic relating game where you're presenting just kind of like, here's who I am. And they were like, oh, hello, like we presented them to other people. And they were like, here is my friend Ankit. He just finished university. He's hoping to get his parents over from India. He's trying to find ways to socialize in his late 20s and this new culture because it's very different. And it's like, and now having said that, having some ego structure of this person, now you're going to gobble like a turkey, right? And so we did one more round of it just to get them comfortable. And then they were like, no, we're not doing that. No. And we're like, yes, you are. And then eventually they acquiesced and they did it. And the most wonderful thing was, as soon as they started doing it, you could tell they were having fun. Like the instant they started doing it, they're just like, there was a joy that exuded from them. One of them was like grabbing a tree overhead and shaking it, and one of them was like sticking out his butt in like a funny way and like flaunting around like a turkey. And like the common understanding would be that like, oh, people are going to like me less if I do something like this. But we instantly liked them more, and we told them that. We're like, I actually like you a lot more now than I did 30 seconds ago. Like, isn't that funny how that works? And they had a great time. They had a fantastic time.
Wow.
Well done.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love that. Really.
That's great. Not something you stumble into very often.
Not something that perhaps I've never done before.
It's that like icebreaker, like you said, of the like remove the rules of how you should act, like how you should be, like put that like perfectionism and control over how you're going to be seen to the side, because right now you have none. And I think that it breaks through to a piece of a side that makes you vulnerable, which I think is maybe the reason that it's so scary, right? But I appreciate a lot of the things that you've said, and especially with that event, I think I would sign up, even though I would feel very anxious about joining and not want to stand up in front of the circle of people watching me be a turkey.
You might,
but
you might find yourself accidentally forgetting your passport.
That's what I was thinking too. I'm like, was it on accident? I don't know.
I actually wrote about that.
About the turkey event.
I wrote about it on.
I read your post.
Oh, you did? Yeah. Oh man.
I knew before you said it.
I wrote a post about speculating about what was my authentic desire. Did I really want to go to Canada?
Yeah,
I think it was your mind knew.
The turkey thing was coming.
You dodged a turkey bullet there.
Oh man. Now I have a little bit of FOMO, not gonna lie.
It won't be the last of its kind. Something like it will happen again.
Yes, keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I guess the last thing that comes to my mind is I was telling Melanie about my fashion idea, which is like button down, kind of like Hawaiian shirts, that have a different kind of flora on them, more native to Lucanized region of the world, where maybe we have some coniferous trees involved or some deciduous fall leaves. I think that would be pretty neat. I think the tropical flora gets all the attention, but we could potentially start a trend.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, because it's always just tropical flora on the shirts. Why not all of the amazing North American ecology? There's a lot to work with.
My question is, I have like photos. I have an album of like 50 photos of like plants and like rocks. And so I have a pretty good color palette. Like, how do I make like a digital design, or like, should I find someone to help me, or should I just try and wing it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can turn images into graphics. Like, there are people out there that can help you do that, graphic designers or sketch artists. But like, how to turn it into like a digital, as in the pattern, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
or
right.
like the
I think
product itself?
The next step would be create like a digital pattern that could actually like go onto a fabric, and then I'll worry about making it into a physical thing. But definitely digital is easier.
My comfort zone. I appreciate you having me and talking with me and thinking that I was interesting enough to talk to.
Yeah, I'm sure
sharing.
Our millions of followers are going to enjoy this episode.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many see it. People see it or don't see it. I appreciate the ask, and your just things that both of you have shared. I can see the intentionality within both of you, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Yeah, it's been really a pleasure to have you on here. I loved our conversation, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and your beingness with us and with everyone else.
All right, let's keep in touch. And for the few people who watch, check out the links in the description. We'll have Melanie's Instagram. We'll have Melanie's Substack. If you want to book a call with either Luke and I, curiosity call, we want to learn more about our audience. So check out the links in the description, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day, guys.